Excellent. By remaining in this chat, by remaining in this class and unmuting yourself, you acknowledge that Angler Drift has the right to record your voice.
And if you don't mind being recorded and you just want to ask your question directly, just wait for a pause, so you're not overwriting Tobias.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today. A nice, healthy crowd for Intro to Visual Heraldry. So, those of you who have, I'm almost certain everyone in the chat has met me, except for maybe like one or two people who have only known me digitally. But I'm Brother Tobias of Heraldsbridge, the resident regent, herald's loud human, and guy that really digs this medieval visual insignia stuff. So today our class is going to be basically covering kind of at an intro level of what is heraldry. We're going to jump in and talk about the component parts of heraldic insignia, of coats of arms, etc. And then we will kind of even go a little bit deeper and show you some examples of some of the kinds of things that people put on their heraldry. Now, kind of an important note on this. I'm going to go, once we get past the what is heraldry and we start looking at stuff, I'm going to go a little quickly, if only because my goal here is simply to inspire you to think about the kinds of options that are out there and available for you as you're designing your heraldry. We have two more classes in this series. Thank you to Her Excellency Cordelia for organizing this. So you have the opportunity to take it a little bit further with the with Roseblood Song on 224. So next week we'll be teaching practical applications of heraldic elements in Port Union's Discord, and then Cordelia herself will be walking through that tangible creating your heraldry in about a month on the Kingdom Discord. So we want to give you we'll give you the art and we'll give you the practicum of it as well. I am monitoring the chat, so if anybody does have any questions, you want to pop them in there, feel free to do so. If I went through something too fast, feel free to say, "Hey, loop it over," and cover that again. We are going to we're gonna get psyched about making some heraldry. So let's talk about what is heraldry. Our good friend Wind Link in the chat in our ANS chat earlier was asking what is heraldry. So I kind of give it kind of a generic description here of the practice of designing, creating, and displaying visual insignia for individuals, families, organizations, and governments. And this dates back literally centuries. You could even say this is a couple millennia old, depending on what you want to consider to be heraldry. Going to have a lot of pictures and examples here, but you can kind of see just some historical, you're probably used to seeing heraldry in coats of arms. You're used to seeing it on statues and stained glass in that kind of medievally kind of way to do it. But you actually encounter heraldry every single day, and you may not even realize that you do it. Absolutely, every state flag is a form of heraldry. If any of you want the New York Times crossword puzzle term, that is vexillology for the study of flags. Thank you, Arrakis with the spelling. But if you have a car that has a logo on the hood, that's heraldry. The logo of Starbucks, that is a mermaid, and it is a specific kind of mermaid called a Melusine, which is a very old heraldic term. So you see heraldry all the time, even if you don't necessarily recognize it. So we're going to cover some kind of core terms to know. Now, again, I'm taking a very historical approach to heraldry. We're going to be kind of covering what heralds in the 14, 15, 1600s would have termed. Don't worry too much about that. It's Amtgard. This is not the SCA where there's a college of heralds that's going to score you on whether or not your arms look good. But I'm gonna take you the way to do it by the rules, and then have fun breaking the rules. Okay. So here's some core terms to know. Broadly speaking, the thing that is your heraldry is called a device. You may also hear that called arms, a coat of arms, armory. Technically, those terms mean a little bit more than just the device, but the device is kind of the core design there. Those are most commonly placed on the shape of a shield because this dates back to the Middle Ages when you were putting this on a shield. And that shield shape is known as an escutcheon or escutcheon, depending on how you want to pronounce that. Similarly, you'll often see what's called a badge, which is more like a personal insignia. You might have a shield that has your household on it, but you might have a badge, which is your own personal kind of flair on that. Those are very often displayed in a circle. The formal language of heraldry, how you actually write it out so that somebody who doesn't necessarily know hasn't seen it before, but wants to draw it out for you, is called blazon or blazonry. A lot of French here. You're going to hear a ton of French terms. And so, for example, the ancient arms of France are in blazon azure, three fleur de lis, or. I'm going to tell you exactly what all that means in just a little bit. When you take a blazon and the written words you actually then draw out to become pictorial or visual representation, that is called emblazon or emblazoning. And so you can emblazon a blazon, or you can blazon and emblazon. If these words have not completely neutralized in your head yet, then good for you. Lastly, the canvas on which those arms are drawn is called the field. The very base of it. If you're thinking about a shield blank, that is the field that you're going to put things on, and the things you put on it are called charges. Okay? And when you're talking about the field, heraldry has its own special way of describing directions or directionality on the field. And when you're thinking about these, they're actually determined from the perspective of somebody standing behind the shield showing it to you. So, for example, your right and your left, if you ever heard about being ambidextrous, or that you have dexterity, that comes from the Latin dexter, meaning on the right side. And then, sinister, evil, those lefties are on the sinister side, that's to the left as you're standing behind it. And then at the top, you've got your chief. At the bottom, you've got your base. So chief and base kind of makes sense. Dexter and sinister are the other ones around that. And again, this is if you are standing behind it, facing it outward to someone else. Okay? You're going to hear these terms used a lot. Blah, blah, blah to Dexter means the thing is sitting on the right hand side of the shield. Okay? Let's talk about the color palette that you're going to be using as you are designing your shield. The color palettes used in heraldry are called tinctures. Your pigments are called tinctures, and there are primarily two what are called metals or your lighter colors. That's or gold and argent or silver. And then you have your colors, which are the darker tones, and that's going to be gules for red, azure for blue, sable for black, purpur for purple, and vert or vert for green. Again, it's French, right? Now, if you think about, your metals, actually putting gold plating on something or using silver to plate something, you would end up with or and argent. That's why they're called the metals. And then your colors are based on, azure like the sky or the sea, sable like the fur of a sable fox, and so forth. So those are your tinctures. You'll also hear very commonly something referred to as being proper. So proper means kind of the way you would see it in real life. Um, for example, if you had an oak tree proper, then you're going to expect it to have a brown trunk and roots and green leaves. But you could totally have an oak tree purpur, and that's just a big purple oak tree if you wanted to do that. So that's why proper kind of fits in there. When you're thinking about how to design your heraldry, you're going to want to think of this thing called the rule of tincture. And in its simplest form, all this means is provide good contrast. The metals go on colors, the colors go on metals. Here's the reason for this. Imagine that you are standing across a huge battlefield, and, unlike right now, the ground is completely parched, and it's the middle of summer, and the dust is kicking up, and the wind is going, and you can't hardly see in front of your face. But across the field, you see a shield, right? Now, if that shield has dark colors on dark colors, going to be kind of hard to see it. If it has light colors on dark colors, if it has metals on colors, it's hard to say this without using the word color, even though it means something specifically. Imagine a capital C and a lowercase c. Then you're going to be able to tell what it is across the field. So, like, squint your eyes at the screen right now and tell me if the left one doesn't really kind of go, but the right one, it's much more clear. So that's what the rule of tincture is. Can you violate the rule of tincture? Absolutely. But just to make sure it's something that can be visible, it's a good idea to try to follow it. There are other colors and types of fields that are available in heraldry. Some of these tend to be a little bit later terms. So if you're really trying to go like medieval, kind of dude, you're going to want to stay toward those core seven. But if you want to go outside of that, you absolutely can. And if you want a way to describe it using the heraldic terms, I'll give them to you. I'll start with the stains on the right hand side. They're called stains because it's like they're stained versions of the normal tinctures. It means some other things, but we'll get into that right now. So, for example, your kind of plum burgundy wine tone is Murray. Your orange is Tenne. If you ever need to remember that, Tennessee, the Tennessee Vols, orange. There you go. Rose, pink. Blue Celeste is your kind of light blue, and then Brunatra is your brown. So now you have some more terms for those. And it goes even deeper than that. People have created, like, there's a term for neon green versus whatever, the more modern you get. The other thing that you'll see very commonly in medieval heraldry are the furs. So these are intended to represent the fur of various creatures, such as the ermine with its spots. And then, so you have ermine, which are black spots on a white field, ermine noir, which is black spots on a gold field, and then you can flip those around. And then you also have these kind of really geometric patterns. Ver, which looks like bells, potent, which looks like T's, and then you can keep going with complexity in those as you want. I see lots of people posting animal pics in the chat. Purple does exist in heraldry.
Lies.
It does. So those are some more options for you for designing the tinctures around your eye. So other than the potentially negligible existence of purple, does anyone have any questions about tinctures and the rule of tincture? All right, we're gonna keep moving forward. I will keep an eye on the chat if anybody does have one. So what are the pieces of your device? Generally speaking, there are 4 components to a device, and you might have more than one of those pieces as you go. You have the field, which is that bottommost layer. So, for example, the plate underneath Caliphos's artistry. You will have ordinaries, which are kind of the major pieces of the device, the major pieces of the heraldry, such as that tuna steak. Then you'll have subordinaries, which kind of go on the periphery. They're not necessarily the main bit, but they're also still very geometric in general. For example, like the asparagus kind of on the edge. And then you'll have your charges, which are more items that go on the field and might have a much more diverse set of information around them, which I'm going to show you a bunch of examples of in a little bit, such as that tomato pesto pasta that you have. So even your dinner can be heraldic. I know that's a pretty big stretch. So that is the field. Right? Any other questions on the field? Or what is heraldry, that kind of broad topic? All right. The funny thing is, anybody watching this video will have absolutely no clue what I'm talking about because they can't see the chat. So that's going to be interesting. All right, let's talk about the basic things that go on that field. We're going to start with field divisions. So, not only can you have a solid pigmented field that's just gules or sable or ore, but you can also do some interesting little designs with it. such as cutting it in half across horizontally. That's called dividing it per fess. So in this case, you've got a field that is per fess, sable and ghouls, top to bottom, right to left. Or you might cut it down the middle topwise, and that's per pale. You might have per chevron, which is kind of at an angle, and you can flip that upside down. We'll see that in a little bit. Per bend is diagonally across. Per saltire is like an X shape versus quarterly, which is a plus shape. So you can see a lot of different examples of here of ways that you can diversify the field and add some additional detail to your heraldry. But you can even do some alternatives of those that we just showed. For example, the chevron can be flipped upside down, as can the pall. So if you want to do it a per chevron inverted, instead of coming from the bottom up to the point, it comes from the top down to the point, per chevron inverted. You can also sometimes flip things horizontally. So, whereas you have a normal bend, which is going from top right to bottom left of the shield if you were holding it, you can have per bend sinister, which takes it from the top left to the bottom right of the shield as if you were holding it from behind. So, kind of an interesting way to look at it there. That journey, that kind of a starbursty looking windmill kind of pattern there on the bottom right, that's a normal journey, which is a plus and an X combined. That makes 8 slices. If you want your pizza to be cut a little thinner, you could have journey of 12 or journey of 14 or so on and so forth. Even numbers it has to be because otherwise you're going to smoosh things together. Though you could do journey of 6 with 3 different colors. Anyways, it's very verse. You can do all kinds of stuff with heraldry. It's really fun. Not only can you do one line somewhere or 2 lines, you can go crazy with them. If you want to do a whole bunch of divisions across the middle, then that can be bari or paley. So you might have paley per and or in this case. You can do bendy, chevrony, options there. If you want to do the checkerboard kind of look to it, that's called checky. So if you have just 4 squares, quarters, then that's quarterly. If you want to go with a checkerboard pattern, that's called checky. Checky is one of my favorite field treatments. They're out there. If you want it to look like a brick wall, you can go masoned. The thing on the bottom left is ghouls masoned argent. So it's a red brick with white masonry grout. Yeah, in the middle. You can also have lozenge, which is very fun. A lot of folks, lozenge is kind of what you picture when you think of like Harlequin kind of patterns. So lozenge is very fun there as well. And then even if you're just covering the field in fleur-de-lis, that's called fleury. Or if you want to make it look like a net, that's called fretty, which is based on one of my favorite charges, which we'll take a look at in just a little bit. Thanks for hopping in, Anton. So those are field treatments. So field treatments, you're still really only dealing with kind of what you painted on the shield. Just not doing that, Arrakis. With what you're basically just dealing with what you painted on the shield. Now it's time to add stuff to it. So let's talk about ordinaries. So ordinaries are another layer up, if you think 3-dimensionally, that are kind of the major shapes placed on your heraldry. This people think this originates in as folks were you built a shield and then you placed a crossbar across it to reinforce it, and then you just happened to paint that a different color, or you put a post up and down. And then you just painted that a different color. It's kind of where folks think this evolved from, is kind of reinforcement to existing shields. Bunch of different options here. Because these are an object that is sitting on the field, these are considered a something. So, for example, we've got vert, a bend, or. So the bend is an object and it is sitting on a vert field. So it's vert, a bend, or. Then Paul Cross Saltire, all kinds of different options there as well. And you can flip these around as well. If you want to have a chevron inverted, a bend sinister, Paul inverted, you can totally do that also. Subordinaries. So there is debate as to what a subordinary is, what counts as a subordinary, but essentially it's just kind of like regular ordinaries, just not as big, bold, and in your face. So, for example, on the top left, you can see roughly the arms of one Tobias Morgan, who is a lord in the Kingdom of Meridies in the SCA, which is a border sable. That's basically a strip around the edge. Those can be a little bit thick. You'll see them drawn thinner as well. And in fact, the arms of the Kingdom of Crystal Groves has a border or a borderlet on it, and we'll see that in just a little bit. And oral is just a border that kind of shrinks in the middle a little bit and squishes in. The Freddy design that we saw earlier is an extension of the fret or the knot that you see there in the third. Flaunches, these little kind of wings that pop in. You have a chief, which is sitting in chief. You have a base, which is sitting in base. And then a canton is just that little square up at the top left corner. So if you think of a lot of different national flags will have the little thing up in the corner with something else in it, let's say 50 stars. That's a canton. And now you have the word for that. Your all of so far everything that I've been showing you just been nice straight lines. Nice straight lines on the chevrons, the pawls, and the bends, the fesses and stuff. But you don't have to do nice straight lines if you don't want to. We call those decorative lines. So you can have things like the invected. It kind of looks like clouds popping around. Embattled looks like the ramparts of an embattlement. Dancetti, it's your Charlie Brown lines if you want. Dovetailed, if it kind of looks like dovetail joins for woodworking, or wavy, which is wavy. So now, I love this little bit. People have been studying heraldry forever, and if you ever really want to get deep into this, there's a gentleman by the name of Sir Arthur Charles Fox Davies who wrote a manual of heraldry sometime around the 1900s, and it is phenomenal. And you can get it for free on any book platform of your choice. You can get the ebooks for free, and it's super fascinating read. And his whole thing is, who cares? Was it an ordinary? Is it a subordinary? Who cares? That's his whole kind of deal on what you call these. The utter absurdity of the necessity for any classification at all is amply demonstrated. So you can be a snarky British man back in the 1900s about heraldry if you wish. So those are kind of your basic core components, your ordinary, subordinaries, yes please, your and field treatments. Any questions about those kind of major components before we dive into the charges side of the world? Alrighty. So now that we've kind of designed our field and we've thought about some of the ways you can divide it and cross it and dash it, let's talk about what can go on that field. We're going to go through what is kind of this broad term called charges. A charge, in fact, all your ordinaries and subordinaries are also charges. This is just any object that you are putting on the field. And there are as many charges as there are things out there. Particularly as heraldry has continued into the modern age, you can find, molecules in the arms of certain laboratories because they do that. You can find zeppelins and magic ones and all kinds of things. So let's take a look at some of those charges. As I mentioned, I'm going to go a little bit fast here because all I really want to do here, I could not possibly cover all the types of charges, but I'm going to kind of give you some broad strokes, broad categories, and some inspiration as you go looking up charges on your own. Tons of geometric shapes. Practically every geometric shape you could want is out there. So rings are called annulets. You got a heart. If you want to have an anatomical heart, you can absolutely put a anatomical heart on your arms. The massel or the diamond shape, trefoil knots. The heraldic term for a star is called a mullet. Heraldry in the front, party in the back. And you will, a 5-pointed star is just simply the mullet. And then you can say, oh, it's a mullet of 7 points, a mullet of 12 points, a mullet of 20 points. The Massel, and I didn't even fix that from last time. It's on there twice. The Rustra is kind of a diamond that's got just a little hole in the middle. It's kind of sort of supposed to represent a knight's spurs. The Triquetra, the D20, an icosahedron, is a medieval piece of heraldry. It does date to like 1500s because people have been rolling d20s for centuries. So if you want a d20 on your arms, go for it. The ermine spots, all of the playing card symbols are certainly there. Cinquefoils, lozenges, lots and lots and lots of geometric shapes. Roundels, that's their generic term in heraldry, but because heralds are extra, each. Yep, yep, absolutely. So let's talk circles. So circles are your roundels. This is essentially, because heralds are extra. It's not enough to just say, "Oh, it's a roundel," or we actually gave all of them a name. So you have a plate or metal disc that is a roundel that is white or argent. A roundel or is a bezant or a gold coin. You have a tart or a cake, which is a tourteau or a roundel gules. The apple, which is the pomme. A bruise or a wound is a hurt or a gulp. A lot of folks think gulp means grape, but it does not in this instance. It literally means wound. And then a pellet or a gunstone. And then this special one, which is a barry wavy thing, which is a well. So if you want to get run and have your arms represent bruises and wounds, now you know how to do that. We've also did something fun with the names of drops or teardrops or water drops. These are the gouttes. So again, very French. You have your goutte d'eau, which is a white or argent drop, which is supposed to represent water. Goutte d'or for gold. Goutte de sang for blood. Goutte d'huile for olive oil. Goutte de larmes for tears. Goutte de vin for wine. And goutte de pois for tar or pitch. Again, special names for things. Sometimes we call things normal things. Sometimes we do not. Now, one of the cool things that you can do with these geometric charges is you can do what's called semi or strewn charges, where you basically are just saying, let's make it polka dot. Let's make it polka dot of fleur de lis. Let's make it polka dot of wheels or lozenges or any of goutte d'eau. And there are very often some special terms for those. For example, semi of plates is called platey. Semi of fleurs is called flurry. Semi of goots is called gooty. So some special things that you can do that. So if you want a polka dot, totally have a polka dot if you would so choose to do that. Let's go into the living world, your quadrupeds. So, when we're talking about animals in heraldry, you're usually going to be talking about three things. Number one, you're going to be talking about the animal itself. You're going to name that animal. And very, very often, that's just a bull, a fox, a lion. We're just using English words for those or the equivalents. But you're also going to be telling us how are we supposed to draw that on the shield based on, is it standing upright, is it standing in a field, is it lying down? So that's going to be your position terminology. And then we're also going to sometimes even get specific with things like, is the whole animal colored the same thing, or is the tail a different color, are the claws a different color, are the eyes a different color? And so we'll see some examples of that as we go. So here's a handful of those. A lion rampant, a bull statant. Statant is standing on four legs. Salient is just kind of up like a good kitty. Rampant versus salient is tricky, but it's mostly just how high the arms are going. Courant means running. Couchant means sitting down. The very very common for quadrupeds, mythical creatures, is your passant. So that's just kind of walking, but with one foot up because it's taking its next step. If someone has ever told you you would do something when pigs fly, the winged sow is a medieval concept. So you can absolutely have arms that depict when pigs fly. Leaping forward, that's salient. The unicorn, very common. If your Pegasus got lost in a storm and flipped upside down, you can do that. It's called inverted. Or if you just even want to look at like the Sphinx is a common medieval creature on your arms as well, and that guy is kind of just chilling. He's couchant. Some more animals here. Snakes. They have a special concept called to be a serpent node, meaning tied into a knot. Couple of examples of some of those special things. A hedgehog. Hedgehogs are absolutely medieval heraldry, and if you want to give their spines a different uh, color, you can say that it is a hedgehog crined, and then the color. So, if, for example, a blue spined hedgehog there. Um, if you want to just have the head of the animal, you can do that. And where that head is pointing is also described heraldically. So, for example, a wolf head affronty means it is staring you in the face. Here we're in Maryland, so scallops, crabs, totally a thing. Sea lions and some other sea creatures will have this embowed concept, which means it's kind of making a U. Or for our Angler's Rift folks, your sea serpent can have that Loch Ness monster shape that is called ondoyant. So wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Birds and the bees, you've definitely got all kinds of different birds there. So a lot of those are commonly pictured in positions such as rising. So the wings are up. That is when you're all rising, a crow, an eagle, etc. If you want to tell me that the dove is looking over its shoulder, you can say it's regardant. If you want to tell me that its legs are a different color than it would normally be, that is legged. If you want to tell me that its beak is a different color than it would normally be, that's beaked. If you just want the head and you want to tell us that the head is ripped off roughly, it would be called erased. Versus if it's cut off cleanly, it would be called cooped. So you have some options there. If any of you are a fan of the Untitled Goose Game and you want that on your arms, that is called a goose enraged. And that is a very medieval thing to have there. A parrot, you remember I was talking about proper earlier. Parrot propers have all the colors involved, and that is a very medieval thing to do as well. And then, of course, you have your bees, spiders, and even those things can be any tinctures that you want. So, for example, this is a spider argent masoned ghouls. It's a brickwork spider. If you ever wanted to do that, you totally can. And you will see animals in real life heraldry all over the place. Animals are extraordinarily common in medieval heraldry. You will see them all over the place. Okay. Let's talk about the plant. Before we get into there, any questions on the animal world for heraldry? Okie dokie. Let's talk. We've done fauna. Let's do flora. So trees and plants. If you're telling me that we ripped the tree up by its roots, that is called proper. It's called eradicated, and you'll see the roots at the bottom. If you want to tell us that it's nicely cut, you just don't say eradicated, and it's just got a nice small part there. Great question from Storm Dancer. Specific parts like paws or eyes. Each of those are going to have different special words that connect to that body part. For example, the tongue of an animal. If you want to tell us that its tongue is a different color, that would be langed, I do believe. If there's ever a question of like, hey, yeah, I want you to know that the paws are purple and the eyes are black. There's absolutely a heraldic way to describe that. Don't have them all in front of me, but it's very easy to look up. I'll talk about heraldic consultation at the end, but always happy to help folks with that. Great question, Storm Dancer. Any other questions on your animal world? Alrighty. The chocobo, we will talk about the chocobo. So stay tuned. We will absolutely talk about the chocobo. Other very common things, speaking of Amtgard type things, if you want to have a bamboo stick on your weapon, you totally can. Acorns very common. If you want to tell us that the tree went through some hard times, it can be eradicated and blasted. So it's devoid of leaves and the roots are showing. Roses are very, very common in period, and those you can tell us what color is the seeds in the middle, what color are the thorns on the edge, what color is the leaves around the corner. Very lots of descriptions available there. Food and drink. If they ate it, you could probably put it on a shield. So loaves of bread, wheels of cheeses, bunch of grapes, If you have an apple and you want to give its leaves specific colors, you can do that. Pomegranates were usually depicted with red seeds in a green outer shell. Cups and cauldrons, very common. For barrels, if you want to tell us that the hoops or the metal reinforcements on the barrel have a color, you can totally do that. Yeah, and rampant does mean kind of upright and like roar. Very common thing. We'll talk about a little bit more about that when we look at arrangement in just a little bit. Those of you like our dear excellency Andy, who are armament kind of folks, obviously weapons very common: swords, helmets, crossbows, spears, axes, you name it. There are probably 3 dozen types of axes that you can find in medieval heraldry, and they all have their own names: scythes, maces, but even things like keys and scissors. Those are very, very common. And Andy's does, and I don't have it in this deck, but I need to put it in this deck because we built his heraldry. Um, Clothes, very, very common. Various types of crowns, even down to the type of crown: baron versus duke versus royal, etc. Very common. Eyeglasses are period. Eyeglasses date back to the Middle Ages, so if you want them on your shields, you can absolutely do that. Thank you for sharing there, Andy. For the knights who are in attendance right now, the symbol of the knight's belt or garter is wildly common in the Middle Ages to specifically refer to knights. In fact, in our usage, you would maybe even take this outer loop and do the trim for the various types of knight that you may be. Your comedy and tragedy masks, absolutely there. Jester's cap, various types of knots, torques, bracelets, shoes. If you want a shoe on your arms, you can totally have that. Lots of stuff around the house. I'm not going to read out all of these, but you can see different kind of options: yarn, candles, abacus, various options here. One of my dear friends, who is currently the principal herald of the Kingdom of Meridies in the SCA, is his arms are purple with a yellow comb on them because his name is Jeff Combs, and he decided to be that guy. Love him to death. And so, yes, there are Easter eggs in this presentation. Ladder, mortal, and pestles. Celestial objects, very big in heraldry as well. Rainbows, starry night, clouds. The clouds are kind of a weird little wonky wobbly thing, but that's what a medieval cloud looked like. The thunderbolt is a symbol of Zeus, and it is a very specific thing. I always kind of thought it looked like a cigar, but that's there. Moons, crescent moons, the sun with a face is called a sun in its splendor. You don't have to put a face on it if you don't want to. In the center of the Angler's Rift arms, there is a comet. This comet is one way of depicting that, but there are many other ways to depict that as well. And then all of your zodiac symbols absolutely available as well for your arms. Any questions about the different types of symbols and things that can be on arms before we jump into? Oh, great question. What is winged ghoul? So in this case, it is the thunderbolt itself. We are telling you that the wings of the thunderbolt are ghouls. They are red in this case. So you would say this is, if I were to blazon the entire thing, I would say this is vert, a thunderbolt argent or white, winged ghouls with red wings. Yes, ghouls is red. Great question, Aurelia. I will share the slide deck because the very beginning of the slide deck, I also have a bunch of definitions for a lot of this stuff as well. So let's talk about some kind of the arrangements of stuff. I've been showing you a lot of pictures of a thing on a shield. You can put many things on a shield. If you want to tell me that the things on your shield form a circle, then you just say that they are in annulo. If you want to tell me that they go in a direction, like a bend, you can just say they're in bend. When it comes, or you can say they're in cross if they form like a cross symbol. And yes, that rainbow, that is a rainbow proper from the medieval times. But you could absolutely say a rainbow XYZ and go. So you might say a rainbow azure. Thinking of one of the pride flags, and I can't think of it anymore. Bad dude of in the LGBT spectrum. Anyways, moving on. So for animals, your animal positions and arrangements are very specific. If two animals are fighting, you would say they are combatant. If they are respectfully looking at each other, they might be called regardant. They are regarding each other. If two animals are running past each other, that would be counterpassant because they're going past each other. So, bunch of other terms for arrangements in medieval heraldry. They named everything. If you want to, if it's upside down, tilted to the left, and broken in half, there's going to be a name for that. And yes, the Teletubby sun is a sun in its splendor. So, as we're kind of nearing the end here, any other questions on charges before we kind of put it all together? Mhm. That is a great question. So, when you are blazoning a shield, you're going to go top to bottom and heraldically left to right. Might be right to left. Uh, your thing up top is always going to be first, and I believe that you would say it is um, field color, a pall with the pall color, and I know you have a book in the middle of that, and then a blank, and a blank, and I believe that's going to be top, left, and right. But it might be the other way around. I'll get specific on that, and I can help you blazon that. One other thing I didn't even show you guys in this, you can put stuff on these things as well. So if you wanted to have a pail and then stick a sword on top of the pail, you can totally do that. That is an option for you. I don't think I have any examples in there as we're going. So, but great question. Yeah, we'll work together to blazon that at some point, maybe after this. So, any other questions on charges? You Yes, I love the fret. The fret is one of my favorite heraldic symbols. Celtic knots are absolutely period things as well. You will see triquetras and trefoil knots and all kinds of those things on arms as well. So you definitely have that as an option. But the fret is uh, my legacy arms back in the society had a fret on a quarterly background, and I counter changed them. I didn't even get into counter changing in this. There is so much more to this. How you describe colors and what you do when colors change over top of each other and stuff. It's awesome, but it's a lot. So now that you have seen, like I said, I just showed you probably 100 charges. There are easily thousands of them out there. So just wanted to give you a little bit of inspiration. So let's talk about kind of some basic steps of designing your own heraldry. Importantly, there will be a couple more classes, as I mentioned, both next week and in March, on this how do you get heraldry onto stuff? How do you put this all together? So be sure to attend those classes. They're going to be excellent classes. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to make the next one because I believe I'm going to be on a plane, but we'll see if it gets recorded. So let's talk about kind of the steps for designing your own heraldry, and then you'll go deeper with our other teachers in the next couple weeks. Number one, a lot of folks will start with a charge or some charges that they like. For example, you might be a blacksmith, so you want to start with hammer, anvil, sword, things of that nature. You might be a cook, so you want to start with food, or you want to start with a cauldron, or things of that nature. You might be a druid, or you might love to play assassin, so you might start with a skull, or vines, or a plant, or things of that nature. It can literally be anything that you imagine. Then you're going to want to figure out kind of what are you going to put it on? Are you going to put it on just a simple color? Are you going to put multiple of them on there? Are you going to want to put it on some divided fields? But then, kind of most importantly, keep it simple. Um, a lot of folks, I will never dissuade someone from coming up with really cool, complex arms if you want. But if you ever want to bring it into the real world, whether that is painting it on something, embroidering it, drawing it, you're probably going to want to have it be something that is slightly replicable to some degree. Or if you ever want to have somebody make something for you, the more complex it is, if they got to applique a lot of stuff, it's going to cost more. So, buyer beware in that regard. But I will say this: we are in Amtgard. We are not in a formal historical recreation society that then is going to make you follow the rules. So don't worry about the rules. If you want to have a half dragon, half fairy, I can't think of any times when that happened in medieval period, but go for it. You want to put a dark green dagger on a black field because it's a assassin's point, go for it. This is Amtgard. The goal here is that your heraldry should represent you. You want it, when somebody looks at that heraldry, you want it to say, that's me. I know who that person is when I look at that. Great question, Storm Dancer, and I will get to that in just a sec. One kind of important thing that I will note here, because there is no central registration of heraldry in Amtgard, the orc has it. The orc is a place you can put heraldry, but there's no search function, and that actually gives me an idea. But anyways, and so the goal is to be unique to yourself. Now, if you've got a black sword and they've got a purple sword, that doesn't mean you copied off of them. If they've got a black sword on a checky blue and green field with a white rabbit, and you did the exact same thing except it's a black rabbit, well, if that's your knight and you just kind of want to go in their kind of vicinity, that might be totally fine. If that's just some random dude that you saw at an event, you think that's cool, it's probably not cool to copy off of them. Try to make something that feels like yourself. Okay, it's just good form. So we're going to wrap up with some examples of heraldry used by folks in Amtgard. For example, me here on the left, Azure, a trumpet oar on a pair of wings argent. Very straightforward: white wings, gold trumpet, blue field. 3 colors, easy to well, I say easy to replicate. Those wings are a pain, but hey, it could be worse. Atheris, fantastic, design for her heraldry, and in this case, there wasn't necessarily a perfect medieval blazon for it. I worked with her to kind of create this language, but there really isn't the concept of a snake coming out of an eye socket and like I don't really recognize that from you. But hey, we made something that kind of makes sense. Like you look at it, if you were to hand that to a herald, he'd probably be able to interpret that and get something that's 60% of the way there, which is more than 0% of the way there. Aramax, same thing. That kind of design where he linked a lot of things together and then set it on fire, which is super fun. Arrakis, one of our good friends. The gear symbol is a period symbol, and then he did a really cool thing, adding an eyeball to it, and then setting that on fire. A lot of people set stuff on fire in their arms. Interestingly enough, at least in this kingdom. The arms of Angler's Rift there, really difficult to kind of put words on this because that kind of crunchy maw thing doesn't really exist. But I called it indented flaunches. Like, sure, why not? It's in the vicinity, right? And then there's the Crystal Groves. The Crystal Groves symbol, which is a phoenix or chocobo, head cooped. So it is cooped per bend, meaning diagonally at the shoulder, or meaning it's gold. Environing in base, a lozenge elongated to base azure with a border boop. So very, when you look at it, it's kind of funny. Sometimes you can look at arms and go, that actually looks a lot simpler than what you wrote it as. Or you can look at like Arrakis's and say, that actually looks a lot more complex than what you would write it as. So, stuff there. Where does heraldry go? So shields, probably the number one place anybody puts heraldry back in the Middle Ages and today. Whether that's fabric paint, screen printed fabric, plasti dip. If any of you are coming out to Crystal Clash on Sunday, there is a raffle. There is a waffle for somebody's doing a custom shield cover, so you can invest in getting some heraldry on a shield. And if you win that raffle and you do not have heraldry, you come to me and I will get you heraldry so that you can have something cool to put on that shield. Banners, very, very popular. A lot of people will take banners, and this is actually good for your question, Storm Dancer, about the difference between heraldry and badges. Oh, boom, Caddy making the shield cover. So yes, I'm sure she would love for you to have heraldry and for it to be straightforward and geometrically simple, as opposed to some of the crazy things that I do. Brain banners. So badges tend to be more simplistic elements. For example, if I were to do a badge of my arms, it might just be the wings. And in fact, that's kind of what like the white wing symbol is gonna kind of be relevant in some heraldic decor that I'm doing, whereas the overall arms are the more complex piece. So Aetherus's badge might just be the blue bunny head, or the knotted snake. Or it could be something completely different. I might have a badge that has absolutely nothing to do with my main heraldry. There are no rules. When you're looking at things like heraldic banners, yes, you could try to paint all of this or do all of this, or you can make like a nice blue and white, checkered banner. And that says blue, it says white, those are colors. There you go. Boom. Badge in the chat from Arrakis. With a little sneaky Crystal Clash belt favor there in the background as well, which is another great use of heraldry. This cloak used to be my arms in the SCA, and that was it's all geometric, it's straight lines, but it was tricky. But you can put your heraldry on garb, absolutely, please do. A lot of folks will put it on. Earrings, that's great. A lot of folks will put heraldry on cloaks on their tunics. They'll get it screen printed in places. So you'll see that a lot. Scrolls, very big place that heraldry goes. I want to. Oh yes, camping chairs, great place that you could throw your a cover on top of. For scrolls, as Caddy and I are humans who have been working on a lot of scrolls lately, if you have heraldry, please have heraldry. We would love for you to have heraldry because that heraldry can go on scrolls for you. If you're getting a master scroll or you're getting a knighthood or something like that, please, heraldry is amazing and wonderful to put on those. And that actually just reminded me that I completely forgot to look for heraldry for all the people I did scrolls for. Or it could be a thing that inspires those designs as well. I need to go back and review my scrolls, Caddy. Anyways, um, uh, worst case scenario, go to Shutterfly, go to TeePublic. You can buy a cushion for a chair that has your arms on it, and this is $20. Perfect representation of heraldry. At the absolute minimum, if you're doing an ANS entry for a competition and you have heraldry, put your heraldry on it. I want to see that somewhere. Yes, and you can even do custom spoonflower and places like that with heraldry. You guys are posting amazing stuff in the chat. Please keep throwing those examples in the chat. So fantastic examples of places where heraldry can go, and you will hear even more practical examples of where you can use heraldry in Rose's class, and then even more from Cadelia in March. So at the end of the day, heraldry is it's the ultimate self-expression. Somebody, if you are standing across the field and you see that double-headed axe with the G looking thing, you know that there are Geistergeist people on the field. You know they are, and you know that that's Rat or that's others, because I totally know that whole company. Anyways, so if you see certain people, if you ever go see that white wing, if you see that my arms hanging up somewhere on site, you know I'm on site now, and you can come find me, even if all you can do is hear me from afar. So go forth, make great heraldry. I'm super excited to see what everybody does with this. A reminder for the Angler's Rift people: we are still running the Raising the Standards competition. So if you make heraldry, I give you points. If you put it on stuff, I give you points. So let me give you points, and there will be a nifty prize at the end of my reign for that purpose. So that is introduction to visual heraldry. One last note, then I will totally open up the floor for questions. If any of you are interested in having your own personal heraldry and you have not yet tried to put it on paper or try to get any designs for it, I used this wonderful website called Draw Shield to every single picture that you saw today was Draw Shield. with minus a couple of them. But I will be absolutely happy to help you work through putting your heraldry in place. Storm Dancer, that is cool, and medieval music, absolutely a thing that inspired heraldry. Um, so yes, if you want to do that, shoot me a message on Discord. I am always down for heraldic consultation. I will try to generate you images if I can. If I can't generate you images, we know a lot of digital artists who do amazing, amazing, amazing things, and I'm certain that they, for the interest of getting more heraldry in the world, would potentially take commissions at least, and then volunteering from there. So, uh, thank you for attending the class. I'm going to open the floor to any other questions. And yes, Red, of course, I would love to see all of the garb that has your heraldry on it, because if you want to know where Red is, look for the red heraldry in there. But yes, any other questions on this whole shenanigan for heraldry?